The field of 68 is set. We're breaking it down right here, region by region on Sports by the Book. I'm Jeff Parles, happy to be with you as always. And we will look right now at the bottom left of your brackets, the West region, the home of the number 4 overall seed, Florida Gators. And to help me break it down right now, you've seen him on our show plenty of times, one of the three-man weave gentlemen. Of course, you get him on the tweets at Second Chance Points. Our good friend Jim Root joins us right now. Jim, we know the field, and I'm happy you wanted this West region to break down because to me, this is the most fun region in this tournament going in.
Yeah, it has a lot of the teams I was looking at as like dark horse Final Four teams, and they go with Florida, who's kind of emerged as the champion pick du jour after they ran through the SEC tournament and looked invincible. Now everybody's kind of picking them to become the favorite for many a media type. But I think there are some tricky matchups here, some fun stylistic clashes. I got to write a ton about this for Jordan Majeski's website, Staring at the Floorboard. So I feel like my takes are tuned up, ready to rock here, Jeff. Let's do it.
So let's just start with that first little quadrant that will be in Lexington or I should say in Raleigh on Friday with Florida. Of course, anytime you and I see Norfolk State, we kind of just shudder a little bit, obviously, from 2012. This actually was the matchup in 2012 after Mizzou got shocked and Florida beat them by a zillion. Gators, playing as well as anyone by the end of the season. Could have made an argument that they could have moved up off the number 4 overall line. They're 29-point favorites at circa 28.5 here at the South Point. I don't really have anything here. I'm more intrigued on that second game because there could be a lot of people that see, UConn's an 8. Let's advance them as far as humanly possible. They're 4.5-point favorites against Oklahoma, who was shockingly a 9 seed despite having 12 conference losses. 4.5, 148 now on this total, Jim, as that has gone up a little bit since the openers of yesterday.
No, smart money. That's some of it's mine. So I hope the over is the right winner there. Yeah, that matchup, boy, I don't really know how either team stops each other. Oklahoma, a very dribble drive centric offense. Jeremiah Fears loves to get downhill all the way to the bucket. They never post up. They're last in the country in post up rate. So it is all let's get there off the bounce. Let's get to the free throw line. And that's like what UConn can't handle. Solomon Ball, solo ball, is a terrible on-ball defender. I called him a turnstile in my write-up. And then their bigs just get in trouble in the paint because they've got guys barreling at them all the time. They get in foul trouble. They give up a ton of free throws. I think Fears is going to live there. And even Duke Miles, Jalen Moore, some of the other guys can get there off the bounce as well. So I think Oklahoma can score, and then you flip it to the other side, and UConn can definitely score too. Oklahoma hasn't really stopped anybody in the SEC. They're especially weak off the ball. Fears, for all his offensive strengths, is still coming around on the defensive end. He can get a little lost, gamble a little bit. And nobody runs better off-ball action than UConn. With Luke Murray coordinating that offense, they run great sets. They put guys in great positions to get downhill off the catch or catch and shoot, depending on what their strengths are. So I don't know what the pace exactly will be, but I think this is going to be like monumentally efficient where teams are scoring 3 out of every 4 times down the court type of thing. Makes sense that the total's ticking up. I actually do like the dog there as well. I just think it's a lot closer to a coin flip. And as you mentioned, there's a big wave of, UConn tournament dominance last 2 years, but this team is much closer to the team that 2 years or 3 years and 4 years ago lost in the first round. People forget Hurley didn't make it out of the first round for 2 straight years. Oklahoma was undefeated in the non-conference. I think we see a little bit closer to that version of them. So I think that's a coin flip with a lot of points. Give me the dog and the over.
It's funny, 2 tournaments ago, Jim, before their first title, UConn played Iona, and at 4-13, Iona's up at halftime, and it's like, here we go again. Here's Hurley underachieving in the tournament, and then what the hell do I know? They only cover all 12 of those games en route to back-to-back championships. All right, let's go to the 5-4, which is in Seattle on Friday. Jim, let's start with that 12-5 game where I was a little bit surprised to see Memphis on the 5 line over going into this last region when it was coming out. I was thinking, they're going to really give Kansas the 5? Is Missouri back on the 5 line? No, they go with Memphis, which kind of stunned me. That opening game of the season might have played a role there. But here you go. Colorado State, as hot as anyone, the 12 seed, 2.5-point favorites. Memphis does have injury concerns, but Jim, I think this is a little bit crazy that Memphis is the dog in this game.
Yep, I do too. I'm with you there. Memphis being a 5 is wild just based on using the predictive analytics and where they landed in Bart Torvik and Ken Pom, but I just think they're like the reverse of the computer trickers. Everybody got mad at the Big 12 last year because, you won by 40 and boosted your advanced analytical rankings. Well, Memphis wins every game by 8 against terrible teams, so their ratings get depressed down. If you take out like Q3, Q4 competition, Memphis looks a lot better. Bart Torvik, you filter it for top 75 teams. Memphis is top 30. Colorado State's 56th. If you filter it for top 50 opponents, Memphis is 25th. Colorado State falls to 100th. So you're looking at teams when they're much more evenly matched. Memphis performs way better. Colorado State has performed worse over the course of the season. You mentioned how well Colorado State is playing. That is a big worry. They're number 1 in the country in momentum per Haslam metrics, is basically measuring how much better their recent performances are relative to their full season output. But I just think the Memphis kind of play up when the opponent across from them is what somebody they deem a worthy challenge. That will be the case as an underdog in the NCAA tournament. You're not getting a complacent effort from them. And honestly, Penny Hardaway has improved as a coach. I used to kind of clown some of their offensive possessions, and they're still a little sloppy with it offensively. And if no Tyrese Hunter is in there, they're down a key guard. But I think this team has sort of figured things out offensively. They're a lot more efficient with Haggerty leading the way. Dane Danger's a beast in the paint against a shorter front line for Colorado State. They're bulky, but they're short. I think Memphis is a great bet there. It's one I've already locked in for 2 units, as we call
there we go,
Jeff.
Jim.
So yeah, Tigers. Yeah, that's right. Go Tigers there.
That's what we call a double bet, folks. That's what we call a double bet there on the Memphis Tigers. It's interesting because there's echoes of, remember when Middle Tennessee, the year after they beat Michigan State, Middle Tennessee inexplicably got a 12. Poor Richard Pitino in Minnesota got the draw. Middle Tennessee was favored, and that game was an absolute beatdown with Middle Tennessee. I think won that game by 16, and it wasn't even really that close. That's the only time I can remember the 12 being favored over the 5 in recent memory, and I'm with you. I think Memphis, the market inefficiency here, the 5 seed, that's the underdog. I'm with you on that game. And then the second game in this pot is interesting. Maryland, who is playing really, really well right now, of course, lose at the buzzer to Michigan in the Big Ten semifinals, even though the committee ignored the Big Ten tournament, but they usually do that. Maryland is 10 against Grand Canyon. And the Lopes, look, Grant Foster had been injured a majority of the year. They looked like the team we expected them to look like in the WAC tournament here in Vegas. The hook is already gone, and it's already been bet down even from 11.5 at some shops. 10 now on the Lopes with 150 in this total.
Yeah, still feels a little high to me, just because you're not going to out-athlete Grand Canyon. They're not an underdog typical of a mid-major. Last year they had that major athletic advantage and took full advantage of it against St. Mary's, winning that game outright in the first round. They won't have that quite against Maryland, but you think about like a favorite versus a dog. You're not thinking the dog is the team that's 10 deep with a bunch of high major athletes against the favorite that has almost no depth and is heavily reliant on its starting 5. That kind of makes me lean towards the dog here. This game's going to be up and down. The Grand Canyon loves to get downhill to the rim. They're top 10 in the country in free throw rate. If Maryland's fouling, that's a real problem because, like we just mentioned, their depth is not good. So if they have to go to the bench, that's a real concern. But I do think Maryland can score. They've got 3 fantastic high-volume shooters, Gillespie, Rice, and Miguel. Any of those guys can get hot at any time. Derek Queen's a great playmaker out of pick-and-roll stuff, and that's going to be a problem for Grand Canyon to handle, too. He's just more athletic than a lot of their bigs. Duke Brennan's kind of ground-bound, their starting center. So I think Maryland's got some edges. Grand Canyon's got some edges. Not quite an advantage for me on the total, though I lean to the over. I just think the spread's a little too high as the kind of talented, athletic underdog that's going to keep things close.
And also, too, Willard does not have a good history in the NCAA tournament. Now, granted, this is the best team he's had by a wide margin. But, again, traveling across the country for a team that has been much better at home than away from it. Might be a tight game. I expect Maryland to advance, but double digit with Grand Canyon. I'm with you again, Jim. We're agreeing a lot, which I don't know how to read that. I don't know if that's a good or...
Just means we're both smart. Come on.
Now we prove our real smartness. We go to the bottom of the bracket here, and you have the Mizzou flag behind you. And when I was watching the selection show last night, I'm like, all right, who's left on the board here as we get to the bottom of the bracket? I'm like, it's going to be Drake against Missouri. And that's, of course, what the committee ends up doing here. This is a massive contrast to styles. Drake's the slowest team in the country. They have 30 wins. Mizzou wants to play fast. When they're at their best, they're playing at tempo and just running you off the court more so than anything. Jim, it's 6.5. I know people are going to bet Drake in this spot, so I will tell you, I'm waiting. I want this number to go down, and I'm going to lay it with Mizzou at the bottom of the market here. I just think the talent differentiation is big, and the athleticism in this game is just so different. I think the Tigers find a way to win. I don't want only 6.5, but I want this number to come down, and then I'll come in later on it, Jim.
Yeah, I think that's the right idea on which direction this is going to go. Drake going to be a darling here. I mean, this is the most athletic team they've played this year. They played Miami, Florida, who is awful this season. They played Vanderbilt and beat them. Yes, that's an NCAA tournament team. They're kind of built transition, speed, pressure, a little similar to Mizzou. Drake turned it over 20 times in that game. Mizzou's going to try to speed them up. The problem for the Tigers here is the offensive glass, where Drake is going to dominate. They got over half their misses in that game against Vanderbilt. And Mizzou's bigger, more athletic up front, but they're not a great defensive rebounding team. And this is a real test for our Tigers and their patience, their discipline, because, as you mentioned, Drake's slowest team in the country per offensive possession length. They're the slowest team in the last decade. Like, they really grind it out. 22 seconds is their average possession on a 30-second shot clock. Some of that is because they go get offensive rebounds, and then they'll have a 45-second possession. And that's just such a test for a team. Like, can you defend for that long and then still turn around and go back on offense and get a good shot rather than being sloppy and firing something up quick because you're sick of playing defense, and kind of have a snowball effect if you're not disciplined. So really keeping an eye on that for Mizzou. I just think Drake's too well coached. I lean towards the dog here, where the number's at right now. Going to be a tough kind of grinded out game. As much as I think Mizzou can force some turnovers, it's still tough to speed this team up. So I'm going to take the points, Jeff, but I hope you're really the more comfortable one winning the bet here, and I'll go like a half unit on the Bulldogs against my alma mater.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where if you get Drake at 6.5, and then when this goes off at 4.5, and they have a 2-point middle, you're just kind of rooting that the free throws end up at the right spot more so than anything. Yeah. And again, if Drake wins this game, will I be surprised? No, not at all. You just outlined it. This is, even though Mizzou is much more athletic, Drake is a great offensive rebounding team, like you said. And we'll see.
Yeah, remember when Mizzou beat Utah State in the first round, and we're like, we get to play Princeton in the second round? And they just out-executed us to death. Yeah, so I'm worried about that.
I will say this team's significantly better than that Mizzou team 2 years ago.
Yes.
So that is the one thing. The 14-3 game is interesting to me, Jim, because Texas Tech, again, a little bit of an injury scare in the Big 12 tournament. Everything seems to be okay. They're 15.5 or 16 in the market on this game. I like this Wilmington team. I think they're really well coached. They were the best team in the CAA all year. They just happened to not be the 1 seed. And honestly, they were kind of fortunate to get Delaware in that last game instead of maybe a little bit earlier. But Jim, I think this is a tighter game than people expect for a half. So I'm going to be looking to bet UNC Wilmington first half, and then treading very carefully full game here, because I think in the end, Texas Tech will be too much. But Wilmington can play with them for 20 minutes.
Yeah, Texas Tech's got crazy weaponry offensively when they're healthy, and it sounds like, as you mentioned, like it was more load management-y in the Big 12 tournament with Darian Williams and Chance McMillan. Both those starters sat out, and they've had kind of nagging stuff all through the Big 12, so it makes sense that they wanted to get them a little extra rest. I do agree Wilmington is tough, and they're big. They've got a 2-man center rotation that they can play through the post. Top 10 rate in the country that they go through the block. So you're going to need JT Toppin, Fede Federico, both those centers for Texas Tech to battle, stay out of foul trouble. The issue for Wilmington is that they do give up a lot over the top. They're pretty compact defensively. And if you're able to shoot like this Texas Tech team is, you can kind of give up a big run in a hurry, and perhaps that's what happened there in the second half where they extend. I'm more looking at the over here, the total. I think both teams can be efficient offensively. I think Wilmington will get to the line quite a bit. Their big guy, Harlan Obioha, is 7 foot, 280 pounds. He lives at the free throw line just because he can separate with his shoulders and give even some of the bigger centers in the CAA some real physicality problems. So Texas Tech's guard play, going over the top, hitting shots, and then the other end, getting to the line. And Donovan Newby's worth mentioning here, the point guard for UNCW. Just tough as nails. He hit some big shots in that tournament run. Like, clearly not afraid of the moment. I think he'll go at Hawkins, the tiny little point guard for Texas Tech, take advantage of the size advantage in that for a little bit. So an efficient type of game. Both teams got able to score against each other. I like the over 143.5 there.
I can't really argue with that either. And look, more so than anything, for at least my way with Wilmington, we usually can see this, like these 14-3 games where 20 minutes, that 3 seed kind of overlooks for a little bit. And again, like you said, I like that interior rotation with Wilmington, and Newby's a stud. I mean, what a player that kid is. But again, advanced Tech, but it will not be as easy as it may look on that spread. Now for the game I am most looking forward to the entire tournament, Jim, Arkansas and Kansas, because the possibilities in this game are endless to me. Are we going to get a John Calipari recent tournament special? Is Kansas just going to say, all right, we're just going to give up like we've seen at times this year against good teams? Will there be will there be some sort of ridiculous thing at the end of the game between Self and Calipari? Who knows? I think the number's right, though. I think Kansas should be a short favorite in this game at 4.5. Total 145.5. The winner of this, more likely than not, gets the right to lose to St. John's in round 2.
Yeah, I have had a tough time with the side in this game. Been wrestling with it back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, I think I should just take the points with Arkansas. I think it's closer to a coin flip. And others, the version of Kansas that's like actually engaged and not wanting to kill each other at altitude at BYU is actually pretty good. And they were competitive in that Big 12 tournament. But I just can't get there with the fit of that roster is still a problem to me. On the other side, Arkansas's got these weird injury questions. Like, is Boogie Fland actually coming back? He did just practice, apparently full health, and they might need the depth with Adu Thiero out. And then the Zvonimir Ivasic wrist thing is a complete mystery right now. He played 8 minutes in their SEC tournament loss, so it seems like it's actually affecting him, but is it going to carry over into this next week? I'm not really sure, and I think he's a big piece here with his length defending Dickinson in the post and being able to pick and pop on the other end. Dickinson's got basically camp in the lane defensively. If Ivasic can go over the top and hit some jumpers, suddenly Arkansas can score, and then this one looks a little bit dicier. But the one lean I had more is on the total. It is to the under because I think it's going to be somewhat inefficient. Kansas forces you to shoot jumpers. Arkansas can't really shoot. They've got issues there. Even if Fland is back, that's a problem. And then Arkansas's got a bunch of SEC size to throw at Dickinson in the paint. With Brazil, Ivasic, if he's healthy, Jonas Adu played for Tennessee. He's been a starting caliber big man in that league for a couple of years. I would lean to the under, even though it's going to be up-tempo. It just kind of feels like an inefficient type of game. Still trying to figure out the side here, Parles. I don't know what to do.
I advanced Kansas in my bracket, but if you told me Arkansas won this game because Kansas had one of those games where Hunter Dickinson is just completely disinterested in actually playing,
aloof,
it wouldn't shock me at all. If you also told me that Arkansas dominates the game for 38 and a half minutes, is up by 5 with 90 seconds left, and manages to lose in regulation, would that shock you either? No, not at all.
No.
It's part of the reason that when the bracket was revealed, like, again, I was trying to figure out who's left. It's like Arkansas. I was like, all right, that's actually kind of humorous from the committee here to have done this. Real quick on the St. John's Omaha game, Jim, I don't think this number is big enough. I really don't. I know it's a huge number at 18.5, but I'm concerned that the trash can beaters of Omaha will have no chance of being able to score against this pressure defense that they were not. I mean, that Summit League was awful on defense all year long, and now you're playing the best defensive team in the country. I just think it's a brutal matchup for the Mavs of Omaha here in this one.
Yeah, it's crazy whiplash. It was the most efficient league the Summit was in the entire country because nobody could play defense. And then you go and just see a totally different genre of the sport with St. John's on the other side. So what I like in this game is kind of I'm going to live bet St. John's, hoping that they get down early where they're a little, you mentioned it with Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington. Can the dog hang around a little bit with a complacent favorite? Maybe that's what we get here. St. John's got down big to Marquette when they hit a bunch of threes early in that Big East tournament semifinal. Omaha can really shoot over 40% from deep. So I like maybe getting in on the live angle with St. John's, and I'm going to be betting first to 10, first to 15 with Omaha here. With the way they can shoot over the top, 6 guys that can bomb away. They're actually solid on the defensive glass. Now, again, they haven't seen athletes like this, so maybe they're not going to measure up quite as well. But if they can compete for a little bit, hit a few shots, get up early, kind of have people like, whoa, Rick Pitino in Providence is down 12-4 to St. John's and spook people out a little bit. Get slightly better on the full game number with St. John's and cash a plus money first to 10, first to 15 ticket. That's my dream outcome with this game.
Well, that would be that's the late game, the last game of the night in Providence, where we're all delirious by about 10:25 at night Eastern time. And you're right; it'll be like, wait a second, Omaha's up 13-4 with 12 minutes to go in the first half. It wouldn't shock me, but again, I just think this is a brutal matchup more so than anything. Like you said, insane whiplash going from a league that was just so bad on defense to, I think without a shadow of a doubt, the best defensive team in the country. All right, Jim, just looking at this region as a whole, when it was all said and done, and again, all of this subject to change from both of us as we go along through this week, I have chalk. I have Florida getting to the Final Four out of this region. I have Florida over Maryland in the Sweet 16 on one end. I do have our Missouri Tigers getting to the Sweet 16 and losing to St. John's there. I'll be looking to take a price on that when those numbers start coming into the market out here in Vegas. But I have Florida over St. John's and Florida advancing to inevitably the national championship game before they lose to a team out of the right side of the bracket for me, Jim.
Yeah, I've been beating the drum for Texas Tech since the preseason, so that's the route I'm going here for the Final Four. Okay. I picked them in the Final Four in the preseason. I do think Florida is awesome right now, and I feel bad not picking them because every time I watch them, I'm just super impressed, and they've got depth, talent, shooting, size, whatever you want. But I think Texas Tech can kind of match some of that with their lineup optionality as long as McMillan and Williams are healthy enough. They can play small, they can play big. They've got really good guards. So I'll give Texas Tech the shot to take over and win this region. Not quite chalky, but I may end up a little chalkier in some of the other regions.
Well, and Jim, just real quick, I know that you guys will be having later on Monday night your official March Madness podcast over at the Weave. But as you're looking at it right now, I at the moment, I'll say it on a different region, but my champion comes from the Midwest, if you can catch my drift. But this feels like such chalk to the finish line where I have 2 1s and 2 2s in the Final Four, and it's like, wait a second, I actually don't have 3 number 1s in the Final Four. That's how ridiculously chalky this looks like going in.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have 3 1s. So besides that Texas Tech one, I have in the preseason, I had Auburn over Houston as my championship game. I'm just going to stick with that, stick to my guns. I know Auburn hasn't quite had the same luster over the past couple of weeks after clinching the SEC tournament or the SEC regular season, but I know that version of them still in there. Certainly scared of a Chad Baker-Mazara implosion.
Yep.
But I'll roll with the preseason pick just because, hey, look, I picked them to win the title. They got the number 1 overall seed. It'd be kind of lame to jump off the bandwagon now. And on the other side, you get Houston, meeting them in the title. I think they're just ultra consistent. They've met all comers since November. Only 1 loss, and it was in overtime. So go with the Cougars. And then expecting Flag to be back fully healthy in that region in the East, I'll go with Duke. They've been incredible all season long. Now they've struggled in close games and haven't really played many in the last couple of months. But I'm not sure they're going to get many close games in that region. Alabama can't guard them. Wisconsin probably can't guard them. I think Duke doesn't meet their demise until they get the rematch with Houston from last year's tournament when Houston actually stays healthy. hopefully no guard injuries and the Cougars get to the title game.
Yeah, it'll be a fascinating look. We'll have all the previews of each region here on the channel, but this was our West regional preview for the NCAA tournament. Again, Jim Root, three-man weave, second chance points on the tweets as well. Jim, it's always a pleasure, man. Good luck this week. Enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy your time out here in Vegas as you gallivant through town over the next few days.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Got to come out and embrace the atmosphere. That's the plan. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Jim Root, everyone. If you're looking for other regional previews, just click right below. All the previews of the Midwest, the South, the East, all available right here on the Sports by the Book YouTube page. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Parles.
And I'm Alex White. Thank you for watching this clip of Sports by the Book. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe.
We live stream the show right here every day on this channel. Also, you can catch the podcast version on your favorite podcast platform.
All the links are in the description below. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.